Welcome, everyone. I'm Megan Zottarelli, Assistant Director of Policy at Source to PawShares, and your moderator for today's online workshop on corporate funding, getting the most out of your local corporate partners. This workshop is organized by the Institute for Veteran Policy at Source to PawShares as part of our Technical Assistance Series for grantees of our California and Texas Veteran Employment and Training Collaborative. This workshop will cover different partnerships that corporations look for, how and when to engage with potential corporate partners, and how to develop a fruitful relationship with corporations interested in your mission. This is an online workshop. However, we encourage you to be active participants, able to ask and answer questions, as well as participate in exercises. Some general housekeeping before we begin. During this workshop, you may type a question to the presenter or Source to PawShares staff at any time. Simply type your questions in the questions box below the slide display on your screen. And then at the end of the presentation, we will review the questions and comments posted and generate a discussion. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and it will be archived on our YouTube channel. We will email you copies of the PowerPoint following the presentation and also notify you when the webinar is archived and available to watch. So our presenter for today's workshop is Amanda Allen, Fund Development Manager at Source to PawShares. Amanda manages communications and development activities at Source. Engages donors, corporations, and supporters in digital and print communications activities, small and large-scale fundraising events, community education activities, and strategic grant writing. Her experience in nonprofit fundraising and communications brings light to the needs of veterans on a local and national level. Amanda's work has resulted in first-time funding awards from large gifting organizations such as Bank of America, Levi Strauss, USAA Federal Savings Bank, the City and County of San Francisco, California Public Utilities Commission, as well as various federal agencies and local foundations. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Megan. Well, good morning and good afternoon for some individuals who are joining us today. I'm very glad that you have chosen to join us to learn a little bit more about corporate funding. Today's session is going to be hopefully very engaging for everybody, and everyone can walk away with something that you may or may not have known before. We're going to go over a little bit of corporate philanthropy and what that means in different communities. We're going to talk about some steps to engage with different corporations, how to communicate your results. I'll show you a couple case studies for what has worked, and then we'll have a question and answer slide. So as Megan introduced, I'm the Fund Development Manager here at Source to PawShares. So a lot of what I do is engaging with the community and figuring out, what our needs are here at Source and with our clients, and what the needs are and what the desires are of our local corporations to engage with the community. So I hope to give some of the knowledge that I have to our partners today. So there's a number of different ways that corporations like to provide philanthropic dollars and philanthropic activities in the community. Some programs are employee-driven, meaning that an individual employee in the organization will have a mission or a desire to do something in the community and will be tasked to make that activity happen. Some are committee-driven, which is what you'll see with corporations that have maybe veteran resource groups or veteran affinity groups, where everyone is in a group together that has a shared mission to help one particular aspect of the community. So for a lot of us, we'll be looking at veteran resource groups or veteran affinity groups within larger and sometimes smaller businesses. Corporations will also have competitive grant applications. So if you're searching on the web for the name of a business and grant, you may find that there's a portal with a number of different questions that you'll fill out about what you do and what your impact is on the community. Businesses will also have individuals that sit on nonprofit boards. Some of you may very well have a lot of individuals on your board that are members of businesses in the community. This is a really solid way for organizations to engage with corporate partners and to leverage their business experience and their contacts to help further your mission. Volunteer activities is a very significant part of corporate philanthropy. Businesses like to see their employees give back in the community, and by working with a business or working with a nonprofit on activities that they may have, whether it's one time or whether it's activities that are ongoing, that's something that you'll find a lot with businesses. They very much like to engage in volunteers activities. Pro bono activities is sort of a subset of volunteering, but it's really skilled volunteering. It's things like providing legal services to your organization. Perhaps you have a law firm that's on your board that can help you with contract review or can help you with an issue that your organization may come up with. These pro bono activities are also a really good way for larger businesses or maybe businesses that are quite complex to provide their very specific service to your organization. And the last one will be event sponsorships. This is sort of this is a really interesting one because it's pretty self-explanatory. They give your organization money, and really all they want is some recognition. So whether it's a logo on a board at an event that you're having, or perhaps a publication that you're putting out, and they get to have their name listed in it. It's really one of the harder ones to achieve, but the best return on investment, I find. So relationship building is really at the core of corporate philanthropy. It's a relationship that you are building with the business, and then it's a relationship that that business is building with the community through you. Some relationships are developed before you engage with them, so things like board participation and event sponsorships. These are going to be long-term conversations that you're having with businesses about, what they want to do in the community and what you do, and making sure that those two things line up. The relationship building may happen during activities that are going on. Relationship building is really important when you are engaging with volunteers. You want the volunteers to have a good experience. They want to feel like they're doing something beneficial in the community. But then your organization also needs to feel like they're getting something out of this. You're not just having people come into your business and sitting there for 20 minutes stuffing envelopes or something. You want to make sure that they're giving you something that you need. And then some relationships are developed after your funding. So with the competitive applications, the corporate philanthropists will get to know you during the grant cycle. Program officers will talk to you about what you're doing, and they're going to check in. And then when you have your final report that's issued, you get to develop that relationship even further, hopefully into multi-year funding cycles. So really just keeping an eye to making sure that you're developing relationships through the entire process will help you succeed in developing a number of different kinds of relationships. Okay, different corporations will have different ideas of what they want to do in the community, and that's part of their relationship building. It's, getting on the phone with someone who has a vested interest in working with you and really figuring out what they want to do and what you need. Some groups like to see really hands-on participation with their volunteers, things like building homes or painting areas in your offices or painting maybe some housing that you operate, and they want to see their results right away. They want to come in and just make something happen that day and then feel really good about what they've been able to do for you in the community. And then some groups really like the longer-term engagement with long-term results. So pro bono activities are a really good example of this, where you may not necessarily have a big push at the beginning. It may be a slow trickle of work that you're engaged in and a couple of different engagement opportunities, but then all of a sudden a year later you'll figure out that they've really helped you push your organization forward or really helped you get through a significant issue that could have impacted how you deliver your services. And then, like I said, some just like to give their money and their logo at an activity. So here on the slide, we'll see two examples of the different kinds of engagement. We have one on the left here where we had about 80 volunteers show up at one of our housing sites to help us really with a big push to get a number of our housing units ready to bring online. And then on the right hand here, we hosted an event earlier this year, and really this was a corporate partner that just wanted to provide us with some funds to help sponsor our event and have their logo on some posters around the facility. So there are 3 pretty easy steps to figuring out who you should engage with and when you should engage with them. So first, you need to figure out what your organization needs. You want to make sure that the corporate engagement is filling a need that you have. You don't want to spend all this time to come up with something that's really not going to help you further your mission. So sitting down with your directors, with your service staff, or even with your board and figuring out where is there a gap in your services or where is there a gap in activities that you have going on, and really be able to articulate that to someone that you are going to approach. And then the second step is figuring out who in the community or what kind of corporate partner is going to be able to provide what you need. Are you really just in need of manpower for a one-time event, or are you looking for someone to come in and maybe sit in on a phone bank and provide some regular activities for you? And then the third thing you'll do is you'll plan this activity or corporate engagement, or if it's a grant, the application. So taking those first few steps, really figuring out what you needed and who's going to be able to provide that, and making sure that you're addressing every aspect of what you need and every aspect of what the corporate partner is looking to do. Because you want to make sure that that match is really, really strong. If it's not strong, then the engagement may wane, or you may not get someone that's fully committed to helping your mission. You don't really need a crystal ball to figure out who's a good fit for your organization. It just takes a little bit of patience to match up with what your needs were and what the company can provide. You don't want to get all worked up and getting the gumption to ask somebody for some time or some money if what their mission is to engage with the community doesn't necessarily match with yours. You want to make sure that you're providing the best opportunity for them and you're providing the best opportunity for your organization. So when you're looking at some gaps that you have, you really need to take a look at the entire organization. Is your board fully staffed? Is your board diverse? And is your board able to give at a significant level? If you've met all of those three things, then board participation is probably not a good way to engage. You want to make sure that your board is effective. You want to make sure that your board is able to be diverse in the community and diverse with the population that you serve. So if you don't have a need there, that's not necessarily a good ask for someone. Do you host an annual event, or do you have something that happens on a regular basis that really requires a lot of staffing? Then that's probably a really good opportunity to look at volunteer engagement. Volunteers are good one-time help at events or big community beautification projects. But they're also good to help out in phone banks or food banks or helping out to serve dinner at some of your communal living facilities. Perhaps you have a program that you want to expand. You do offer meal service at one of your facilities, but you really want to add another meal. So you've already got something that's going on. You just need a little bit of extra help to bump that up a little bit. So research is really important when you're looking at who's going to be able to provide different things in the community. First thing you should do is look at other nonprofits in your area. Look at their board composition, who sits on their board, what local businesses are engaged in the community. You may see a theme. Perhaps you may see a lot of local banks that are participating on nonprofit boards. If you do see this, this may bode well for asking some of your local banks for different kinds of support. Perhaps there is a particular business area or business industry in your community. And if so, are there any leaders from these businesses that sit on nonprofit boards? By starting a list of these businesses and banks that are engaged in the community, it's a really good place to start. These are individuals that are rooted in the community, that are rooted in ensuring that the needs are met, knowing that they have a business that's here and they sit on these nonprofit boards. They're not going anywhere. They really want to make sure that the community is getting everything that they need. The second thing you can do is look at annual galas and events from your other local nonprofits. Who are the sponsors that are listed on some of these events? Do you know if there are any in-kind donations that are being made to other groups that would be beneficial to your organization? Again, getting these on a list, making sure that you're just looking at other people in the community or even looking at other groups that do something similar to you in larger cities that may be close by or of a similar composition to yours. And then looking at media, so looking at press releases and blog posts. A really easy thing to do is to go to Google, www.google.com, Type in the name of your local business and the word volunteers or the phrase community engagement, and you may find that a lot of things pop up where they had a press release that was issued for something that they did in the community, or somebody wrote a blog post about something that they did, or even perhaps the newspaper or local TV went and followed them to a community benefit project. For example, if you type in the phrase Home Depot and volunteers, you'll get a wide variety of search results, but the primary one will be the page dedicated on Home Depot's website on their volunteer engagement. And that's a really good place to start with veterans. Home Depot has a very strong tie to the veteran community. So just that simple search provided you with just about everything you need to know about what Home Depot likes to do in the community. So I don't know if this is showing my age, but some of you may recognize the music lyric. You can't always get what you want, but if you might find you might just get what you need. So that's matching up what you need with what that business or that person in the community wants to do. One really easy place to look that a lot of folks may not necessarily think about will be your current funders. For some this may feel like double dipping, right? You already get financial support from them, but chances are they also want to do more in the community. If the corporation is already providing, pro bono support or volunteer or support for your organization, they may also provide a monetary donation. A lot of banks and a lot of larger businesses will provide a small grant or a small stipend to a nonprofit group after so many volunteer hours have been finished with an organization. Bank of America is one example of that. After, I believe it's 200 hours of community service, they provide a grant to the organization. So this may feel like double dipping if you receive one thing from a business and are asking for a second, but it's not. Bigger corporations and even just smaller corporations really like to be engaged with the community. So if they're doing one thing, they may do another. And if they don't necessarily want to give more, if they don't have more volunteer hours to give, they may be able to point you in the direction of somebody else that can help you. Okay, so you've done a little bit of research and you've found a couple businesses. Now you don't necessarily know what to do. You kind of have an idea of what you need here in your organization. You kind of have an idea of what a business does. So what do you do now? Well, this is where you use your wonderful, wonderful communication skills and you reach out to these organizations. You have a phone call. You send an introductory email. The personalized emails work really well when you are able to highlight what you know about the business and what they're already doing in the community, and then highlight what you're doing and how that matches with what they're engaged in, or highlights how that matches with the business's mission, and then just explain to them what you'd like to do to bridge those two things. I wouldn't be afraid of hearing the word no. If you've ever worked in sales or if you've ever worked in development before, you'll hear the word no a lot. And no is okay, because no is an opportunity to ask, well, do you know of anybody else? And that's probably the second most important question after, would you like to participate? So again, just don't be afraid of the word no, because it's an opportunity to parlay that into another relationship. And no right now may not be no forever. It could just be no, we're already engaged in something right now, let's look again in 6 months. Or no, that's not what our mission is, maybe look back in a year or so if their volunteer group is going to be changing over every year. Also, make sure that you utilize your board. Your board is here to help you further your mission and to guide you into being financially sustainable. So utilizing the contacts that your board has in the community or within their social circles to look for relationships that could be beneficial. And then probably one of the more important things is starting locally and then building your way out to regional focuses and national focuses. When you're engaging with groups that are local, you have a lot more heart in what's going on. If they're a local business, they want to ensure that their local community is being taken care of. If you're looking at a business that is located in New York City and you're in Omaha, there may not be a vested interest in really focusing a lot of their attention on Omaha if they need to focus their attention in New York City. That's not to say that a large business won't be interested in your cause, because a lot of them are. But chances are your local contacts are going to be a little bit easier to get to than one that's a couple thousand miles away. So I wanted to show a sort of sample pitch that I've put together, something that I've used to engage with one of our local regional banks that had a vested interest in working with veteran causes, but wasn't really entirely certain what they wanted to do in the community. So I made a couple assumptions and pitched something to them that I thought matched with what we needed at Swords to Plowshares and what I could tell from my research on what this particular regional bank wanted to do. So I won't read it out loud. The slides are going to go out afterwards, but if you can see, it's a really good way of demonstrating that we have a particular need for volunteers at one of our housing sites. This is the date. I did a little bit of research and saw that they have had volunteerism as a focus in their community. So I have a volunteer activity. They've done volunteer activities before. This makes perfect sense. Let's see if we can move this forward. Now, for this particular group, it wasn't actually Banks of the Milky Way. I wish it was. This particular relationship didn't pan out for this activity, but it did pan out for something else. So while it didn't work to have volunteers come out for one of our facilities, we were able to have a further discussion, and we received a small competitive grant from them later in the year. So the next thing we're going to talk about is engagement. Engagement is really important because these are going to be your cheerleaders within the organization that comes to work with you. So we get everyone involved. We get them out at our site to do something, or we get them involved in some pro bono work, or we've got someone sitting on our board and they've come to their first board meeting. So the first thing you want to do is really make sure that they see your impact in the community. If it's the first time that they've engaged with you, invite them out for a site tour at your site. Show them what you do. Show them what kind of impact you have on your clients. If a group is a little bit uncertain about what they're going to do with you, have them come to an activity that you already have planned, right? It's a good opportunity for them to see the kind of work that you're able to do and how you like to manage your engagement. If you've got a group that has a competitive grant application that you'd like to apply for, it's a really good idea to reach out to a program officer first to talk through some of the basics of your proposal, especially if you're unsure if the fit is 100% with what they want to do. Competitive grant applications take a little bit of time to plan, to write, proofread, and submit, and you really want to make sure that if you're investing all this time in writing this grant, especially if you don't have a dedicated grant writer or a dedicated development team, that you're as competitive as possible before you're carving out a lot of time for this. This also shows a really good amount of initiative with the program officer when they do go to review your applications. A big theme is to under-promise and over-deliver. It may seem a little counterintuitive, but you want to make sure that you're not biting off more than you can chew. You need to demonstrate to your group that you're capable of utilizing their funding in a responsible way, that you are utilizing their volunteers in an appropriate way, and you can demonstrate that by achieving all of your planned objectives. You're incorporating 100% of the volunteers that you committed to, or you're able to increase the number of clients you're able to serve utilizing the business's financial or volunteer support. Or you're able to, further develop a program into its next stage by utilizing a business's pro bono services. But really making sure that you're able to achieve all of your objectives. And you can go above and beyond what your objectives are, and that's great. But just make sure that you're able to deliver on what you're able to promise. You're able to deliver on what you promised. And if you're not able to, that's okay. That's why you have that relationship with the program officer, right? You've established a relationship with them. They know who you are. They know how you work. And if you do encounter stumbling blocks, you maybe are getting a little bit too fast or your program's not getting off the ground, you're able to have that conversation to make sure that you don't derail your developing relationship. We all know that when we're starting programs from scratch or you're starting something that you haven't done before, it takes a lot more time than you think it will. It costs more money than you think it do, and it takes more people than we planned for. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at new funding opportunities or new programs that you want to launch. Budget a little bit more extra time, budget a little bit more money, and budget for a little bit more people. All right. Communication is really important when you're dealing with corporate partners. Businesses often have PR teams, communication teams, marketing teams. Getting their name in the community and protecting their brand is really important to them. So it makes sense that they want to see what kind of impact they're having in the community, and unless your organization is able to communicate that to them, they may not want to come back and work with you again. So make sure that you're telling these businesses and also the greater community how much this group has helped you. Take lots of pictures of the activity. Photos can enhance your messaging, whether it's online, on your website, in any collateral that you have, and incorporate them to the extent that you can in your website, in your annual report, or your Facebook pages, your Twitter pages, and make sure your contacts of the business get those photos as well. When you're communicating the impact on social media, make sure that you tag the business's profile so that their supporters can see that as well. If any of this sounds a little bit unfamiliar or a little bit new, take a look at that communications toolkit that was sent out late last year for some best practices on engaging in digital communication and social media. Social media is kind of where a lot of this information is going to be stored lately. Bank of America is a big business that loves to have their social media followers see what they're doing in the community. Same thing with Home Depot. So getting those pictures on social media and on your website is going to be really important for them, so it's really important for you. So storytelling is really actually kind of fun. I think it's fun. You're able to really summarize the entire event and make sure that you've hit all of your goals, and you're able to take these hard, concrete details and turn it into something that makes somebody feel good about what they did, or engages with the community a little bit more than just this is how many hours somebody was out and this is what they did. So you're still going to have those concrete details, but you're going to sort of weave it into something a little bit more fun to hear about. A good way to do that is to provide a client story or an example of somebody who's benefited from this activity. It humanizes the experience, and it really engages with your viewers and your business's viewers and supporters more than just some pictures or some words on a page will. When you're engaging with corporations, it's really good to write thank you letters highlighting, the accomplishment. Being able to tell somebody that you were able to help 30 clients that day, or you painted 4 buildings, really makes them aware of how instrumental their help was in getting your important work done. When you're keeping in contact with these program officers, you're able to, keep them aware of what's going on and, further deepen that relationship with them. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, a business may engage with you one way, whether it's volunteers or financial support, but they may also provide you with a second or third level support. So keeping all of these accomplishments aware of your program officer or anyone else that you're engaged with is really important. One of the most important things you can do is make sure they get your annual report each year. It's a good reminder to engage with your program officers as soon as you've put together your annual report, just to remind them of what they did for you that year and how you'd like to engage with them in the upcoming year. If you do have a competitive grant, make sure you never miss a deadline, whether it's for a grant renewal or a report or something that you promised to do. Keep your word and get that in. If you can't, for any emergency, let your program officer know as soon as possible, especially if they're coming out to an event that you have going on. Canceling on less than 24 hours notice is not really fun for anybody, but we all know that things happen, right? We had a natural disasters happen, or a program emergency happens. Things happen, and that's okay, but just try to be as proactive as you possibly can. Volunteers are also your biggest cheerleaders. By putting this information on social media about what they were able to do that year, they can share with their friends or their other coworkers at the business, and they can recommend your group for a corporate gift or nominate you for more activities. So these are all these things are kind of interrelated. Being able to tell these stories and making sure that other people can tell your story for you as well. When you what do we have here? So when you're engaging with events, that storytelling is really important. So here I have a pitch that we send out for our annual Veterans Day dinner, which is coming up in 2 weeks. So when I'm engaged with groups for the first time who necessarily don't know about what we do or what our impact is in the community, being able to really quickly describe what we do, what our impact is, and what their funds are going to be able to do will help you and them figure out if this is going to be a fruitful partnership. Again, here's another example of that thank you letter I mentioned. It's getting all that concrete information down, but humanizing it a little bit more, right? This was a community benefit project that had some apartments that weren't right ready for move-in, and we were going to be spending about a month getting them together. But we had 87 volunteers come out for 1 6-hour day, and we got all of that work done. And it was just absolutely amazing. So when I was able to communicate that to that group, they shared it on their profiles, they shared it within their organization, and we've had 2 or 3 other employees within the business asked to come volunteer with us. Volunteer your best choice. Okay, I'd like to provide just 2 really brief case studies as we get towards the end of our presentation a little bit. So I've given some examples of different activities that we've done, different ways that we've developed our relationships. But these two examples really show what we can do when we're engaging with our program officers, when we are communicating our results, and we're looking towards long-term relationship development. So this first one we had was a large national grocer that had a number of stores here locally. For a number of years, we had received funding from the national chain. It was pretty small, but it still provided a really important resource for us. We didn't really have a lot of success engaging with the program officer. We would hear from her, maybe once a year, and we, tried to engage a little bit more to whether it was increase some volunteer hours or maybe look at upping the grant amount, and it really didn't go too well. So the chain was eventually purchased by another corporation, and we lost our internal contact. And that happens. It's okay. People move on for whatever their reasons are. It was then that we realized, if we've lost our main contact with the business from, their regional office, let's just look at some local stores and see if we can engage with them again. So we did just that. We looked at a local store and we got them out for a volunteer event. They helped us with something that we do every year, an annual holiday event for our clients to come out. It was a food service event. It was a meet and greet, handing out some backpacks. It didn't require any technical skills. It didn't require any training in advance. It was really just, everyone showed up for about 4 hours, helped serve some food, gave out some backpacks, but it fulfilled their desire to support veterans and military personnel and to be in the community in some sort of way. So that went really well. They enjoyed their time. We took photos. We put things on social media. We tagged their business. And that was that. Didn't really hear much after that. So after the event, we reached out to that employee contact to see if they would sponsor our competitive grant application. You may find this on some competitive grant applications, a line for an employee sponsor. So this may be an employee email address or an employee ID number. For this particular grant, we could apply with or without the sponsor, but we knew that there was probably a better chance of our application being scored higher if there was an employee that sponsored that. So she agreed to, and we were ultimately awarded a much larger grant for program support. The new program officer at the grocery chain had read a request and reached out to us looking at our history, knowing that we had some volunteer hours, that we had an employee that sponsored us, an employee that was able to vouch for what we were able to do in the community, and then suggested us to apply for a second funding stream for workforce development. So, this is really a deepening of a relationship after what seemed like something was going to go away. But maintaining that contact, maintaining those stories really ensured that we were able to have our message amplified within the business by an employee because they were able to engage with us. These volunteers still come out with us every year, and this first grant has changed into ongoing general operating support, which is amazing for an organization. So if you've got a group that has maybe gone stagnant, or perhaps there's been a couple buyouts, I really encourage you to reach out and try to reestablish a relationship and be able to describe what this group was able to do for you in the past, or what you'd like them to do in the future, but just keep those lines of communication open. Okay, our second little brief case study is about board engagement. So we have a fairly sizable board. It's ranged between 12 and 15 individuals. We have individuals on our board that are members of the community, so whether they were high-level employees at a bank. We have a very large legal pro bono program, so we have a number of individuals on our board who've engaged with the pro bono program. We have an individual who previously received services from us who sits on our board. And then we have a number of just prominent Bay Area veterans who sit on our board. So we've had a seat on our board for a local bank for a number of years. And they were also a prominent veteran in the community. This individual retired, so this was an opportunity for us to develop our relationship with this bank a little bit more. The board member who was retiring was replaced with another fairly high-level employee at the bank who themselves were also a veteran and were, had a vested interest in supporting another veteran service organization here locally. This particular person had attended a number of our events. They got to know us a little bit long before they even considered joining our board. It wasn't until they saw the impact that we had in the community from attending our events and seeing our impact on the web that they took this information back to their community engagement team. Community engagement is also another reference to public relations for corporations. The community engagement team was very receptive for our ask for a regular sponsorship for our annual fundraising event, really based on the cheerleading that this particular board member was able to do within their organization. So not only were they able to sponsor our annual event, but they encouraged us to apply for a veteran-specific grant they were running through their bank. This particular grant was successful, again, from our impact in the community, but also the sponsorship of the bank employee. These bank employees also volunteer with us on a fairly regular basis, not only at the annual event that we have, but at activities throughout the year at a number of our housing sites. But it was really that board member going back to their community engagement team with the feedback that they saw to encourage them to apply for us to apply for funding. We didn't necessarily know about this funding stream. We didn't really know what was quite going on. This was a relationship that we were able to build and that we were invited to apply for. So this is really a multi-dimensional relationship that we're able to have. We have volunteers that come out. We have an annual we have an annual gift for our event. We receive program grants, but we also have a board seat. So it's really, a truly integrated relationship. And it's one that I hope to mimic with a number of our other community partners, really looking at this integrated relationship. So I have gone through, a number of different ways to engage with corporations, but it's really figuring out what you need, figuring out what the business can provide, and making that relationship as perfect as it can be. If it doesn't work out in the immediate term, it may be able to work out in the longer term, but maintaining those local contacts and making sure that your message is out in the community is really important to getting these relationships established and getting your needs met as an organization, and then ensuring that the business's needs are met as well. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Megan to maybe see if we have any questions or if there's anything else that folks would like some more clarification on.
Thanks so much, Amanda. Now we'd like to open up to Q&A with the audience. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them via the question or chat box located below your webinar's display, and we'll do our best to go through them all. If you have asked a question at any time during the training, we'll address those now as well. We do have a few that came in, so I will start with, this one is about board engagement. So what are some good ways to get the board involved without overtaxing or depending on them too much for money? What about for more longer-term board members who seem burned out on giving themselves or are overtaxing their contacts but still want to stay involved with the organization?
Okay, so for board members that may not be able to financially give or feel like they have engaged with their contact list a little bit too much, you can ask them to just engage some of their time. If they don't necessarily have funds, they may have some time. And so having them come out to maybe some of your annual events or a one-time event, not necessarily to work, but really just to see them, in the community. For board members that you may have that are long-standing, maybe 10, 15, 20-year board members, it's okay for them to step back for a little bit to find their opportunity to be re-engaged. It's an opportunity for younger board members, not necessarily who are younger in age, but who have been on the board for a little bit less time, to step up a little bit more and to show what they can provide in the community. And then give some of your other long-standing board members who do have very valuable things to do for you, but just to give them a chance to step back and recharge a little bit. Getting them connected to your mission again may get them able to give financially a little bit later. So just, keep in mind that the ask or the give doesn't necessarily have to be financial. It can be time, or it can just be, an introduction to somebody, right? That introduction can result in a give that could far exceed what your board member was able to do personally. So, maybe reminding your board members if they're a little bit overtaxed with their checkbook that, you'd just like to know, who they know, and a brief introduction for you to take over from them is just as valuable and just as beneficial.
Great, thank you, Amanda. Real quick, Ron Garman from US Vets gave you a shout out, said the information is absolutely awesome. Asked his presentation will be available for later reference. And yes, it will. We are making it available on our YouTube channel, and we'll also be sending out the PowerPoint slides. So just sorry if I did not reiterate that. We have a question. We are in a smaller community, and local corporations tend to all give to the same groups, while the larger organizations tend to shy away from smaller organizations and smaller communities. Do you have any recommendations for that?
Yeah, band together. The businesses may not want to give to a smaller organization because they want to, maximize their impact in the community. So to do that, band together with another organization that either does something similar to what you can do and you can sort of share the benefit, or maybe somebody that does something completely different, but their services could also benefit your clientele. So if you get a couple different organizations together for a big volunteering event or some sort of big community benefit event where all of your clients can benefit, so all of your businesses can benefit, this may be an easier sell to a business that wants to see the biggest impact that's possible for them.
Great. And another one, how do you get corporations involved in a Fund a Need or other online campaign?
Okay, Fund a Needs and online campaigns they're fun and they're a lot of work and they can be very frustrating. Fund a Needs and campaigns work the best when you have, one or two businesses that are really committed to providing a significant gift. And the best way to maximize their gift is to use them as a one-for-one match in your campaign. Google does this a lot with their community giving. They don't necessarily give to smaller organizations in the community. Instead, they like to see their dollars matched with other individuals. So when you're running online campaigns, perhaps for Giving Tuesday this year that's coming up in about a month, or for your end-of-year campaign, being able to tell that business or that corporation, we'd love to see a 4-figure gift from you or a 5-figure gift from you, and we're going to have that matched dollar for dollar by our community supporters or by another business. So you're demonstrating to them that you're able to double their impact with somebody else. So that's a really good way to try to engage with somebody online. It also demonstrates to your supporters online that you have the ability to manage these relationships, and you can kind of, toot your own horn. You've got these great relationships in the community, and you may be able to garner more support from your community supporters if you can show them that you are going to take their dollars and match them as well. So I would start with that, and then hopefully that will help your campaign this year.
Great. I don't see any more questions, but if you do have any further questions, you can feel free to email us at bec@stp-sf.org, and we will forward them to Amanda. We'd like to conclude this presentation now, so thank you, Amanda, and to our attendees. As I mentioned, we will archive this presentation on our YouTube channel within the next few business days, and we'll also send you a copy of the PowerPoint presentation as well, as any other materials that we referenced. So thank you so much again for your time. This concludes our workshop, and you may now disconnect.